Hey there, storytellers. Marigold here, and welcome back to the AI Writers Connection channel, where creativity meets technology. If you're itching to write the next big literary fiction or young adult novel, but you don't know where to start, you're in the right place. In today's session, we're going to dive deep into the wonderful world of AI assisted writing. From shaping that early concept with Claude 2 to weaving words into powerful prose with Sudowrite's story engine. Are you ready to level up your writing game? Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. And don't forget to leave a comment telling me what you want to learn next. And you can even join our lively community on the AI Writers Connection Discord group. All the links are in the description below. So, grab your notebooks or open up your favorite writing app, and let's craft some compelling characters and plots together. Today, as stated in the opening, we are going to be covering a young adult concept. This is something that I actually came up with the other day. I want to say maybe 3-4 days ago, and I've kind of played around with the content, and I've actually written about 3,277 words, and you can see that up here at the top where I just highlighted. So this early concept came to me when my husband called me over and said, "Hey, come listen to this young girl sing." So I was listening to her sing, and just a beautiful song. Of course, I don't speak French and I do not speak Italian. Listening to her sing, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. It was just so emotional, and hearing all the emotions and the depth within her voice actually sparked a story for me. I went out and I actually had to look up the lyrics for the song, and I understood the movement a lot better, but the way that she could convey that emotion was just incredible. And I'll actually go ahead and link that information in the description, because it's not often that I actually listen to a piece of music and then come up with a concept just listening to it, but the raw power in her voice was just amazing. In this song, when I was listening to her and listening to the depth of emotion, the concept began to kind of form and flashed in front of my eyes. The concept that I came up with was, in a small town surrounded by lush forests and winding country roads, 16-year-old Amelia Price lives with her mother. She's the daughter of a single mother who is conservative. She's a reserved piano teacher who actually just broke up with her boyfriend of 2 years because she kind of had a commitment issue. She had never married after having her daughter. Now, Amelia is a gifted singer and pianist, following in her mother's footsteps. One morning, her mother is driving Amelia and herself to school in an older model car, to the Catholic school that Amelia attends and that her mother teaches music at. Amelia and her mother, they're actually arguing in the car about a trip that Amelia wants to take for spring break with her friends. And that trip would not have any type of supervision. You know, she's 16, feels that she's more than adult enough to take care of herself. Her friend has a driver's license, so they just want to take off and experience spring break. Well, the mother is really firm in her answer in telling her, no way. Amelia dreams more of an adventurous life and feels that her mother's holding her back, and she begs to go on this unsupervised spring break trip with her friends. So it leads to tension between her and her mother. During the argument, Amelia, out of anger, yells at her mother, telling her how unfair she's being and that, she should let her go. And out of frustration and anger, she yells at her mother, "I hate you. I wish you were dead. I'd rather live with my father," which was a huge thing for her to say to her mother, because Amelia never knew her father. She knows that that comment wounds her mother, but she says it anyway out of anger and frustration. Now, it's a foggy morning and a deer jumps out into the road, and the mother swerves to miss it, but she loses control. and a car wreck ensues. The car goes off the road and slams into a tree. A branch impales the mother, killing her unbeknownst to the daughter. So as I began to think more about this story over the coming days, I thought about how maybe Amelia could possibly wake up in the car, upside down, strapped in by her seatbelt, have her coming to, aching, hurting, the stillness of the night or the morning when she comes to. Lights are flashing, she hears voices, speaking. They're kind of distant, she can't make them out. She has this intense pain that's making her cry out. Her face and arms and other areas are bleeding from the broken glass and tree branches that are in the car with her. And then everything goes black. And then she wakes up in the hospital. And when she does, she doesn't speak at all. She remains mute. She learns that her mother died in the accident. Right there at that moment, she has selective mutism. She hasn't spoken a word. All these lacerations are on her face. She looks at herself. She's thinking, oh my God, I'm Frankenstein. She's just appalled and has lost so much and feels so lost. And the guilt is just eating her from what she said to her mother. Child Protective Services comes in and explains that her mother's will gives custody of her to her biological father, a man she knows nothing about because her mother never told her anything about him. She learns from CPS or Child Protective Services that her father lives in the UK. He's notified and he actually demands that a blood test be done to confirm paternity because he only slept with Amelia's mother once during a trip to the US. He was never told about the pregnancy. Through the blood testing and so forth, it's confirmed that he's Amelia's father, and paperwork is started to have her move or relocate to the UK once she's stable. The attorney hands over a sealed note to one of the father's bodyguards who is escorting her back to London, or to London, should I say, because she's never been there. And in the letter, the mother details a note that states, sorry that I didn't tell you about her. I wanted to reach out to you. Once I found out about the pregnancy, 6 weeks in, I looked you up, but then I saw your engagement announcement. Here you were moving on with your life, and I couldn't bring this pregnancy forward to you because I couldn't do that to you and to the woman that you were starting your life with. She went ahead and chose to raise Amelia alone. So this is one of the reasons why she never told her daughter anything. Now, fast forward to Amelia's release day, and she hasn't spoken at all since the accident because the last words to her mother are tearing her up inside. She has stitches on her face, on her head, on her arms from the accident that it makes her feel very freakish. She feels bad and just kind of feels like she should be punished because she kind of takes the accident and takes it upon her shoulders and feels that it's all her fault. And that with that survivor guilt, she feels that maybe she should have died instead of her mother. She remains mute, even though the hospital staff and CPS tries to get her to speak. She pleads in writing with the CPS workers to not make her go to the UK. She begs to stay with one of her best friends whose family would gladly take her in. However, her biological father insists that she must move to his estate. Now, a little history on the father. He did marry the woman that he was engaged to when Amelia's mother found out that she was 6 weeks pregnant. He married the woman there in UK. She became pregnant, and during childbirth, she and the child both died. He has carried that guilt with him. He has never remarried, never had any other children, and he vowed that he would never father another child because he kind of feels that it's his fault that his first wife died. He would never wish that on another woman. Now we have Amelia with this horrible guilt of feeling that it's her fault that the accident happened and having to live with the fact that the last words that she said to her mother were really hateful. And then you have him not realizing that he had a daughter. He married, lost his wife, lost his child, has vowed to never have another child. His mother is a widow and she wanted grandchildren, but she's respecting her son's thoughts on the matter and knows that even all these years later that he's grieving. Well, once she has to leave the hospital and go to the airport, she tries to run away, but she's caught and escorted to the airport and handed off to the bodyguards. Once she's there and she's on the plane, she gets sick. She's never flown that far before. It's all new to her. She doesn't know anybody, so she feels utterly lost. Once she's in the UK, she enters a house that is huge. It's a mansion to her. Her old 2-bedroom house that she lived in with her mother, the only thing she's ever known, could actually fit inside of her new bedroom. There are servants around, people asking if she's okay, trying to get her to speak. She can't find a quiet place alone, and the guards watch over her because they're not giving her a chance to run away because they feel that she's a flight risk. So the father has them watching her constantly. Now, enrolled in a new school and still mute, she's bullied by some of the more popular kids in school because of the way she looks. All of the cuts on her face are healing. She feels monstrous. And there's one boy that is nice to her and even stands up for her, but she isolates, and it's this feeling that she's not worthy because, again, she blames herself for her mother's death. She's still having a hard time getting over those last words. And as the days and weeks go by, she wishes that she could take it all back. And now being bullied in school, it's just really hard. She has nowhere to go. She needs some type of a sanctuary that she can call her own. Now she finds an old auditorium there at the school that is kind of sectioned off, and she finds a stage there. And on the stage, there's an old piano. She sits there, and it becomes her refuge for lunch every day. And she goes there every morning. With that piano there, she begins to hum a tune. And she kind of begins to play the piano a little bit. Her father's home has a beautiful garden full of all kinds of plants and stuff. And it reminds her of back home with her mother and how, even though she and her mother didn't have a lot of money, that her mother always scheduled really nice things for them to spend quality time together. And one of their favorite things to do was go to the local park, feed the ducks and the geese, to walk around, look at the flowers during spring, look at all of the wildlife. Walking through the garden makes her feel closer to her mother. But while she's in the garden, place of solace for her, she actually befriends a wise old gardener that works for her father. He's a man, I'd say in his 60s, 70s, who teaches her about healing through caring for plants. He doesn't care that she won't speak and tells her, yeah, don't worry about it. Speak on your own terms. Not everybody else's. Do what's right for you. And he tells her to do you. That relationship grows between them. And he kind of becomes a grandfather figure, grandfather that she has never had. Now, Amelia's father, initially distant at first, begins to connect with her through her music because there's piano in the home, something that he hasn't heard played in a long time. He dabbles. Now, his mother was a pianist and she plays. So that would be Amelia's grandmother. He listens and he finds her playing. One evening, he hears her playing and it just kind of brings him to tears. Her father also has some of the best doctors in the world look at her for plastic surgery, for reconstructive surgery on the scars on her face. And he also takes her in to have her looked at to see why she's not speaking. And he's told that her lack of speech is selective mutism, that she'll speak when she's ready, and it's all because of the trauma that she experienced. Now, her friendship with the estate gardener grows deeper, and she spends all of her free time either at the garden, in the greenhouse, or in the auditorium at school. She's going through all of this grief. It's bringing up heartache for her father, who never knew he had a child and has vowed all these years to never father a child, and he never knew that he already had a daughter. Now, at school one day, the bullying is so bad because of the cuts on her face and arms, and the fact that she is not speaking, that she runs off in tears. She sneaks into her refuge and she plays the musical score that she has created. However, this time, instead of just humming the tune, she actually begins to sing original lyrics. Unknown to her, the boy that has been really nice to her and is trying to kind of be a buffer between her and her bullies, without her knowing, he actually records her. He sends that video off and it goes viral, and people are just amazed by her voice. Well, it's dark in the auditorium, so you can't really see her very well, not enough to make an ID. When the video goes viral, it overwhelms her, and her love interest visits her at home, tells her that he filmed her and released the video, and he wants her to go public so that people can see her the way that he sees her. Well, she is so angry that she starts shoving him out of the house, and the bodyguards think the love interest has done something to her and makes him leave. She runs to the garden, and the gardener tries to console her. She shows him the video, which actually makes him smile. And for the first time since her mother's death, she breaks down and cries, telling the gardener that the accident was all her fault, that if she hadn't been yelling at her mother and telling her how unfair she was and talking about the spring break trip, that her mother would be alive today. He tries to console her, but she runs off. She is detained at the estate gates by the bodyguards. Her father is called, and when he shows up at the gate with the gardener, who has clearly told him what she has said, her father tries to comfort her, telling her that it's not her fault. Her breaking down, the father picks her up and carries her into the house and holds her and tries to comfort her as a fatherly figure. The paternal grandmother shows up and joins in, and they both get to hear her speak for the first time. Not only that, but the father and grandmother watch the video, and the grandmother thinks it is the most beautiful tribute to honor Amelia's mother, and both Amelia and the grandmother cry. One day at school, with bullying, when it becomes unbearable, she flees again. She's singing. People begin to hear what she's doing, and people begin to accept her for her. And even the bullying becomes better. And one of the bullies even begins to apologize. Now, as the story unfolds, Amelia's relationship with her father deepens. They bond over shared losses, and they do find healing through music and through a love that they are able to find between each other. Amelia's performances become a symbol of her emotional journey. At a charity event, she actually performs her composition and dedicates it to her mother, which kind of helps her with healing. This story will explore the gardener's influence on her and how he helps her find peace. And it symbolizes the growth and acceptance of life's cycle. Death is part of life. In the end, it shows that Amelia's journey leads her to a place of forgiveness and understanding and love. Her family gathers around the piano for a new hopeful composition, celebrating their growth and unity. The story actually closes on a nice note, highlighted by the transformation of music, love, and resilience. The book actually covers themes of grief and healing, the power of music, growth and forgiveness, family, and friendship. One of the things that I did in the story was combine the small town setting and the symbolism of the deer really kind of shines things forward, because that accident is a loss of innocence. So the deer running into the road represents her innocence and how things can change just so fast, and how the transcendent power of music impacts or touches people's life. I want the story to offer a touching and inspiring exploration of the human connection of love and growth. Now, Amelia's journey goes from grief-stricken girl to a strong, compassionate young woman, and it provides a compelling arc. It makes the story a deeper emotional tale of human resilience, that power of art, and how people can find solace there. everything that I just discussed or read to you is what I am going to ask Claude to help me with. So, all of this is stuff that I kind of used as a brain dump. It's all the information that I had in my head over the past 3 days that I sat down to write. Now, I'm also going to ask Claude to review the extended synopsis, which also talks a little bit more about the event, how things happened. The deer leaps out into the road, the mother swerves. So it has all that information in there. In addition to that, it talks a little bit more about the accident. The argument ensues and how it occurs. It gives a little bit more information on the accident setting and how it reinforces the characters in a small town background. It's supposed to contrast a sharp contrast between how she grew up in that small town in a two-bedroom house, kind of a poor single family environment, and how she ends up in a completely different country and is living in a very affluent, well-to-do area on an estate with her father, a man she knows nothing about. I want to show all these different sharp contrasts. The deer accident on the country road is symbolic. Again, it's showing that emotional and thematic exploration of her life and how tragedy shapes who she becomes. Now, the note that the mother leaves was something that I kind of came up with after the fact earlier today because I needed a way for the mother to explain something. And the best way that I could come up with it was a sealed note that the mother gave to her attorney when she drafted her will. And the note was to be opened upon her death, especially if Amelia was a minor. And in this case, she was. The father's tragic past, I needed to have something that would show the father's past, how things had happened for him, to be able to build that backstory and kind of give him different layers that can show him being able to grow and evolve as a character. And by losing his wife and his unborn child, that grief is something that both Amelia and her father can find some common ground on. And then, of course, the paternal grandmother's joy of having a grandchild, somebody that she felt she was never going to have in her life. That kind of brings a nice, vivid role into the mix. And the grandmother is warm. She's excited. She can't believe she has this granddaughter. Again, that adds another layer and shows Amelia that she's wanted. Looking at Amelia's father's tragic past and that connection, the note, the grandmother's joy, all of these come into play. And again, when you are drafting a concept, you want to find out how all of those elements and pieces fit together. This is what my process is. Your process may differ, and that's okay. No two writers follow the same pattern when they are writing or when they are creating. So again, find what works for you. Me kind of thinking about a concept when it flashes before my eyes and I kind of see it in a cinematic style. When that happens, kind of chew on it, ruminate, and then I begin to write elements of it out when all the pieces kind of fit together. So what you see here on screen is exactly what I did. I'm going to go ahead and copy all this. I'm going to take this information and I'm going to take it into Claude. So let me go ahead and make my screen larger here. And I'm going to go ahead and start a new chat, or maybe not. I think Claude is really trying. Hopefully Claude is not down. Now, I have had issues for the past, I guess, 3 days trying to work in Chat GPT-4. That's actually where I generally do all of my plotting because, well, it's not because I prefer it over Claude. I've only been using Claude for a couple of weeks now, so I'm still learning the ins and outs of using Claude too. And since I've been using Chat GPT since about the end of December, I am more familiar with how to prompt it. And because of that, I kind of have a process that I follow within ChatGPT 4. I've actually started playing around inside of ChatGPT 4 with, I believe it's called the code interpreter. And I found that it does okay, but I still feel that GPT-4 does better than the interpreter. But I have been impressed with what Claude 2 is doing. And if you do not have Claude, be sure to go out and check it out. I will leave a link in the description so that you can play around with that. So let me go ahead and paste my content in here. And you notice that I just copied the whole thing, and it's over 3,000 words. I put it into my message area, and now I'm going to go back in, and let's go ahead and go to my prompts. And on screen, you will see that I have a couple of different steps here. This has become step one because I like to recycle my content. Did have my original step one in my process was to create 20 premises, but because I already had a premise in mind, I'm just going to use the one that I created. Now, as you can see, I'm asking Claude to write a 500 to 600 word synopsis. And on this synopsis, I'm going to remove academy because I'm not doing an academy. So I'm asking to write a 500 to 600 word synopsis using the early concept idea provided in the literary fiction / young adult and drama coming of age romance for the basis, and add 7 to 10 tropes, including orphan's ordeal, healing through art and music, the lost heir, and ugly duckling. Plus, I want 10 to 15 themes, including grief and healing, the power of music, growth and forgiveness, family and friendship, along with some motifs and symbolism listed in the early concept idea provided. And I also am asking Claude to go ahead and provide a title, a tagline, a log line. I want the AI to make it clear what the goals and motives and strengths and weaknesses are for each of the characters, the protagonist, the love interest, and the antagonist. And I also want to add in a formidable antagonist or antagonistic force. So that antagonistic force could be Amelia's grief and how she is pulling all of that grief that she has on what happened to her mother. That can become her antagonistic force. I want that to come into play, and it should be something that antagonistic force wants something from the main character or characters for personal gain. And again, your character, your protagonist, can actually become his or her own antagonist because of the way that the character maybe acts. So in this case, she can be one of her own antagonistic forces. The other thing that can come into play here for her would be, as antagonists, would be the bullies at her new school. I'm also asking for Claude to include a list of settings for the concept that would bode well for this story concept, while considering the overall story tone based on the tropes and themes that are selected. I also want those 5 descriptor words used to describe the selected genre's tone, style, and mood, the subgenre tropes and themes with subtext dialogue. And I also want the story to take place over hours to days in some places and days to weeks in others. Why do I tell the AI this? Because I want the AI to have a clear understanding of what my expectations are. So the AI can't produce content for me the way I want it if I don't prompt it. So think about what it is that you would like to see the AI provide for you, and then write that out. As you can see, this prompt is not JSON. It is just straight up typing exactly what it is that I want. So let's take a look and see what Claude gives us. It actually named it The Girl and the Song, a story of lost love and healing through music. Okay, so it gave me a name, Finding Harmony. Now, that could be interesting if I change your name from Amelia to Harmony or Melody. That could be interesting. The tagline, her voice was silenced, but music became her salvation. The logline, after a tragic accident claims her mother's life, a gifted young musician named Amelia finds healing and connection through her estranged father, The Power of Music and an Unexpected Romance. Now, as you can see here, it actually gave Amelia a last name, so that's kind of cool. So it does say 16-year-old Amelia Harlow is a gifted pianist and singer being raised by her conservative single mother, Anna, in a small hometown surrounded by lush forests and winding roads. Now, that's exactly what I had inside of my kind of brain dump there. And the AI picked up on it, rehashed it, and kind of spit it back at me, synopsis style. Now, during a heated argument about an unsupervised spring break trip, a deer darts out into the road, causes Anna's car to crash, killing her instantly. Amelia is devastated, blames herself. So we all know what this story is because I just walked through all of that just minutes ago. Some of the items that I have asked to be in the synopsis, you find in here. You find that she's sent to live with her estranged father, Lord Edward Rye, a prominent British leader, mourning his late wife and stillborn child. You find that she's on a lonely estate. She finds solace in the gardens with the groundskeeper, Walter. She also finds some solace in the auditorium that has a piano at school. And at first, her father, Edward, and her have that distance. That was in brain dump stuff. And eventually, she and her father bond over music. It does set the stage. It gives me some information. Now, is it detailed? No, it hasn't spit out an extreme detail. But one of the things that Claude is actually really good at when you give it prompts is to hold on to content. But you also have to watch Claude because he kind of likes to take liberties here and there. And that's how, in one of my other stories that I was creating through Claude, how my rom com ended up with, my love interest in the rom com that I was working on ended up with cancer, which, you really have to watch Claude. I cannot stress that enough. Just watch what he spits out because it may not be what you want. Let's see, the tone is moving, haunting. Okay, I can see that. The style is reflective, actually lyric. So one of the things that kind of sparked my interest with this is that I definitely want to write the book. But I'm thinking that I'm going to make this a Mira Gold book so that I can share this with you from beginning to end so that you can see the whole process and actually see the end product published. In addition to that, I'm thinking because of the lyric or melody of it, I'm kind of getting the vibe that I would love to turn this into a feature. I'll probably go back through this whenever I'm done with the novel, and I'll probably flip this into a feature film script so that y'all can see how I walk through that process as well. Now, I'm not sure, I might flip it into a feature, a mini series, and then I might even see if I can take it beyond a mini series just to show lessons in all of those areas. So again, this is a project that you may see a lot of because I'm going to use it to teach different facets of writing, everything from novel writing to script writing. Looking at it, Amelia, she becomes orphaned. She loses her mother, but she gains a father. They have to find their own way and definitely want it to be a story about triumph, forgiveness. Writing it kind of like made me teary eyed, which can be a good sign when you write something and it evokes emotions from you, then it kind of means that you're on the right path. Because if it can evoke emotions in you as the writer, then those emotions will translate into what you're writing. So let's go back and take a look. Now, the next step that I want to do is actually step 2, and that is to evaluate the current synopsis and strengthen any weak, vague, or problem areas that we need to strengthen. If there's somewhere that we need to strengthen, I need to know about it. And this is also a good way for you to kind of touch base with the AI just to make sure that the AI understands the direction that you are going. So this part is extremely important. We want to keep the same information from the prior step for the characters' first names and last names. We want their ages. We want to identify any ensemble cast, and we need to know about the antagonist or the antagonistic forces. And I am going to make antagonists plural because even though there's a bully at her new school, there may be more than one because, bullies sometimes run in little crowds. So I'm going to write down the bully and her friends. And now that antagonistic force can be her and her emotions. Now I want the AI to give the main characters some physical, facial, body descriptions, some attributes, strengths, weaknesses, list what motivates the characters and what do the characters want. I also want it to go ahead and assign Myers-Briggs personality types and to list 5 descriptor words. Now, you may be asking, well, didn't you do that before? Yes, I did. So in step 1, if I come up here, yes, I did ask for 5 descriptor words, but those are for the tone, style, and mood of the actual story itself. In step 2, I'm asking for the tone of the character. I want to know what kind of descriptor words fit my character's personality and tone of voice. Now, will I keep them all? Maybe. Or I may find that I want to change them up. As a writer, that is something that I can determine. And if I did my job well enough in my early concept that I uploaded to Claude, then I have given him enough information to maybe draft all this information for me and to organize it. So right now, what am I using Claude for? I'm using Claude as a resource to organize my thoughts, to help me flesh things out, to help identify the best Myers-Briggs characters, to give me some descriptions, and to make sure that I'm piecing things together. And if I'm missing something, to perform this evaluation. So I'm going to ask it to refer to the information in step 1. So if there's anything that it needs to look at, I want it to go back and look at the information that I have already given it. I'm going to go in and give it this information next. And let's see what Claude does. Now, I do this all the time with ChatGPT-4, and I love the way that it can provide me with real-time examples that apply to my concept. I really haven't done that a whole lot within Claude, so I'm kind of curious to see how Claude is going to handle that. So I am going to go ahead and if you're wondering how I hit the enter space here, I just held down the shift and hit enter. And right now I'm on a PC. I believe you can do that also on your Mac. I just kind of do it second nature without even thinking, but it's a handy thing when you're trying to organize things. Now, Claude, GPT, they don't care if you run everything together, but me, I kind of like to see things aligned a certain way. And I guess it's just because I have a style or a process that I like to follow, and I'm very much a creature of habit. So here I'm going to go ahead and ask Claude to follow step 2. See what Claude does. Now, again, if Claude produces something that you don't like, then keep prompting, keep asking information. It's letting me know that Harlow is slim, petite girl with long long hair, hazel eyes, porcelain skin. She's marred by scars from accidents, a gifted musician. She is creative, emotional, introspective, often dreaming of a more adventurous life beyond her small town. Her weakness is blaming herself. She is motivated by a desire to find her voice again, both literally through music and emotionally after tragedy. She is an INFP. Now, her descriptors are soulful, haunted, compassionate, idealistic. You have to think about all the different words that could describe your character, and what Claude or GPT gives you might fit. But if it doesn't, go back and make changes yourself. Catherine Rye is Edward's refined mother. I skipped her dad. So Edward is a distinguished older gentleman in his 40s. He has a little bit of silver hair here and there. He has some Piercing blue eyes. I don't know why, but every guy seems to have piercing blue eyes when AI wants to describe them. As a leader of a prominent British family, he presents a formal demeanor but is thoughtful and caring beneath the surface. He is motivated to connect with his long lost daughter through their shared love of music and as part of his own healing process. We're looking at how they can form connections. The AI gave him the personality of an INFJ. His descriptors are he's refined, he can brood, he's empathetic, he's somber, and he's cultured. So that's going to come into play with the way that he is written. Those are important descriptor words for the AI to understand exactly how to look at my character. Now, Catherine, Edward's mother, she's also refined. She's grandmotherly. She's in her late 60s, elegant. She has warm brown eyes. Her motivation is to provide Amelia with unconditional love and support. She wants to fill that void left by that loss that she feels from Edward's wife and the grandchild that was never born. And now all of a sudden she's got Amelia, this young girl that needs to be loved, and she is so ready to love on her granddaughter. Her descriptors are to the manner born. Now, that is an interesting description because she's kind of the matriarch, and that is a good descriptor for that. Now, she is nurturing, giving. She's very proper and wise. Remember, she is British. Taylor Adams is a handsome, athletic 17-year-old boy. It gives what color hair he has, his eye color. He reaches out to Amelia at school. Now, he's motivated by care and admiration. He wants to help Amelia. He wants her to embrace her musical gifts and that inner strength that he can see. His flaw is overstepping boundaries, but his heart's in the right place. Now, you notice that he's an extrovert. Everybody else, the mother, let's see, the daughter, the father are introverted. The grandmother and the love interest are extroverts. Now, the love interest is compassionate, he's impulsive, he's big-hearted, he's earnest, and he's loyal. Now, Lucy Hill she's pretty, but she's really spiteful. She's 16 with shiny dark hair, cold brown eyes, and she's a bully. Now, I'm really curious what her backstory is. Why is she a bully? What made her that way? So that's one of the things that I want to know. So far, I'm okay with everything that Claude has given me, but why is Lucy actually, what makes her the way she is? Let's go ahead and ask Claude. So I want to know, why is Lucy a bully? What made her this way? And I'm asking Claude to go ahead and give me a little bit of a backstory on her. Now, as I'm reading through this, if I see other questions that I might have, then I'm going to want to ask those questions also. So let's take a look. We know that Lucy is a pretty but spiteful 16-year-old girl with shiny black hair. As I already said, she has cold brown eyes. She bullies Amelia out of jealousy over her musical talents. At first, it starts out that she's mean to her because of the cuts. And then she's mean to her because of the musical talent. Her motivation is superficial popularity, and she serves as the main antagonist until she eventually changes. She is also an extrovert. She is vain, manipulative, calloused, superficial, and judgmental. Now, I do want to know what made her that way. Now, it alludes to it a little bit by telling you that her motivation is superficial and that she wants to remain popular. Maybe she has a crush on Taylor. I don't know. So we can ask, does she have a crush on Taylor? Now, that could definitely cause friction. Now, again, let's look at the ensemble cast. Now, how many cast members did I ask for? I asked for 10, but it actually gave me only 5. So we will have to ask it to correct that later. Walter is the kind old groundskeeper at the estate. I want a little bit more information on Walter because he is the mentor. So I'm going to tell Claude to give me a backstory on him. How long has he been with Amelia's father? So some of the things that I want to ask are, why is Lucy a bully? What made her this way? I want Claude to give me her backstory. In addition to that, does she maybe have a crush on Taylor? I mean, that's definitely a possibility. And that could actually kind of up some of that tension between the girls if Lucy has a crush on him. That could also cause a lot of tension between her and some of the other kids at the school who might follow Lucy. The other one that I really want to know more information about is going to be Walter, because Walter is actually that mentor. So I want to know how long he has actually worked for Edward, because he probably knows a lot of backstory. The setting now also includes, a music hall for Amelia's climatic charity performance. It has estate stables for quiet solace moments and more bedrooms, studies, drawing rooms, libraries, cozy nooks, because it is a grand estate. Claude wants to go ahead and merge all of those in there. And I think that that's okay. All these locations can reflect her emotional journey. Each one can kind of reflect a different aspect of her life. And I kind of like that. See what Claude does. Here's some backstories for Lucy and Walter. Lucy comes from a wealthy family, but she grew up feeling overlooked by her busy parents. Her twin brother, oh, there you go. She has a twin brother, receives more attention for his academic achievements, leaving Lucy constantly striving for popularity, have some validation from her peers. I like that. It kind of tells us a little bit more about Lucy. She puts on an air, mocks less fortunate students to elevate her social status. She's cruel towards Amelia, and it all stems from jealousy over the attention that Amelia receives for her musical talent once that's out of the bag. Now, Lucy also harbors a crush on Taylor, kind of further fuels her antagonism toward Amelia because, she likes Taylor, but that's he doesn't feel the same way and she doesn't understand. Now, Lucy, just like Amelia, deals with a deep insecurity and loneliness. Both of the girls kind of have the same emotional state, but they got to those emotional states two different ways. But it doesn't make one's loneliness more than the other. Now, Walter has been the groundkeepers for the Rye family for like 40 years. Now in his late 60s, he's kind hearted. He's watched Lord Edward grow up from a young boy and has taught him about gardening, instilled reverence in Edward's life. And when Edward's wife died, Walter was there to provide a sympathetic ear. I like all of that. And upon Amelia's arrival, Walter provides her with that same gentle grandfatherly wisdom. And I love that. And it kind of helps coax her out of her shell over time because he gives her the space that she needs. And so I like that. So I like everything that Claude has given me. So let's take a look at our next one. And of course, this is going to be step number 3. Now, we already have a little bit of a character list, but now I want a fully fleshed out character list because now we have some new characters. And this is exactly why I have my character list generated after the evaluation. Now, you notice that in my evaluation prompt, I do ask it to provide some information on some characters and on my minor characters, but I'm going to solidify that in step 3. This way, it kind of prompts the AI to say, hey, stop and take notice because I need for you to pay attention to the information here because it's important. So that's one of the reasons why I will restate some of the same information over and over again. Let's go ahead and go back to Claude, and I'm going to ask it to go ahead and to process step 3. And let's go ahead and see what it comes up with. Now, again, if Claude produces something that you do not like, take the liberty to make those changes. Again, If you don't like your character's auburn hair, change it. If you don't want to use any eye colors and because you don't want it inside of your manuscript where you might miss something or confuse colors, then take it out. Anything that you are not comfortable with, make changes to. This is your story. And the more details that you give Claude, in some areas it can really help Claude. But if you give him too much detail when you are asking Claude to help write out some prose, the area that you'll run into some issues with will be in the beats for the story. If you try to micromanage Claude too much or even Story Engine too much, then you'll find that you are wrestling with the AI and it's not a fun situation. So you want to make sure that as you're progressing that you're giving very lean detailed information that is actually important to the story, not because it's a pretty darling, or phrase, but because it's important. So, like Anna Harlow, Amelia's late mother, is represented through memories of the piano. So, we want to have very basic information so that we can give Claude or Story Engine the ability to write the prose later on. Take a look at what it gave me. So it went ahead and gave me the INFP. It has given me my descriptor words, which is soulful, haunted, compassionate, so idealistic. It has somber, cultured down here for Edward. We have, I love to the manor born. I love that phrase. And we also have the same thing for Taylor and for Lucy. It's important that we have our main characters and we have a little bit more information there. Now, on the ensemble cast, you will notice that we have multiple people now, and we actually have more than 10. And why do we have more than 10? Because there are more players that come into the story. And by having those story elements, it's going to help the AI write and actually pull those characters. So we have an ensemble cast. Walter, Claire, Margaret, Thomas, and the headmaster are all in that ensemble cast. Those characters, we will see more of those. Now, the AI has defined the minor characters as Anna, a doctor, an officer, reverend. So it has all these other people that come into play in and out of Amelia's life. Now, I like that it did this because I can take this information and I can plug it into Story Engine under my character list, or I can even ask Claude to write stuff for me. But either way, I have a nice detailed character list. Now, if I want to make changes, I can do that. The only thing that I will not do is come in here and write so much that it weighs it down with information that may not be needed at this time. The area that I really want to fill in the information is going to be within the beats. So if I see that there's information that I'd really like to have in the story beats for the prose generation, that is where I'm going to spend a whole lot of time. Now, if I were writing some really deep lore for maybe a paranormal or academy or something that had witchcraft or elementals or supernatural beings, then I could put lore and wrap lore within my characters. But this is a contemporary piece, so I don't need any of that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what our step 4 is. Now, 4 is to write a detailed backstory. Now, I do have some backstories, but what I'm going to want to do is ask to have the backstories again. Now, why am I asking for a backstory again? I am doing that because I have already generated some backstories, and now I have a new character list. So I'm going to ask Claude to give me that information again. You'll notice that I do a lot of repeat and a lot of rehashing. And I do that because it helps to keep him on par, to help keep him where I want him. I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to ask it to proceed. Proceed with step 4. Now, however, let's see, I want you to incorporate all the other details you provided prior and roll/wrap them up into the backstory. So, what I want the AI to do is to proceed with step 4. I want it to incorporate all the other details provided prior, roll them up, wrap them up into the backstory of my characters. I want the AI to redo it just so that I know that we're on the same page, because it's going to be really important for the next steps. Oh, and there we go. We have Willow Ridge. We definitely don't want the town to be called Willow Ridge, but I can change that. So I'm not too worried about it. So there again, we have all the backstory. We have a car crash that killed Anna, left her scarred. She's riddled with guilt over the argument. So again, it's restating everything that's in those backstories. It even has information about Walter, what he represents for the family. It gives us the small town. It gives us the estate. It's giving us more information about the story itself. It even has some old folk tale claims about the forest deer that are mystical guides. So it's putting additional content in there that maybe she finds inner strength when a deer spirit appears. Well, you know what? I don't think I want a deer spirit to appear because this is not paranormal. So what I'm going to tell the AI is this isn't PNR. So no deer spirits, none at all. You can have symbolism, but no magical elements. And I am going to tell it this is contemporary. And let's see what it does. And Claude is thinking. So this is what I'm talking about. You really have to read the content that's in here because Claude really, really will take some liberties. It's like, hey, let me throw a ghost spirit over here. So he says that he's happy to modify the folklore reference. So I'm going to ask him to revise. Let's see, we were doing step 4 and give the town something other than Willow. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I have asked the AI to revise step 4 to exclude the folklore, paranormal stuff, and to rename the town. Don't use Willow. And if you have used AI enough, you will know that there are certain things that the AI falls back on. I don't care if you are using Claude or if you are using Notion, Bard, GPT, all of them will start to use Willow. So let's see what it provides now. So now Claude is going ahead and providing all the information that I have asked for. It says, let me know if this fits their realistic. I'm happy to make other changes. I'm satisfied at this point with the information that I do have. Now, I would probably take this information along with the others. So what I want to do now is tell it to give me a full listing of my main characters, my ensemble cast of characters, and my minor characters. So what I'm going to ask now is I'm asking Claude to give me a character list of my main characters, the ensemble cast, and minor characters with important details for an AI to draw information from when writing prose. So let's see what Claude gives me. It's giving me a detailed list. I have my main characters. It is giving me a bulleted list, which I actually love. The only thing that it has not given me is her, oh, well, it gives me a few. It gives me that she's a dreamer, thoughtful, kind-hearted, but I'll still have to go and grab her other list unless I ask Claude to add the descriptor words. I'm going to go ahead and ask Claude to add the descriptor words to this list and rewrite it. And that will kind of help me be able to have everything in one place. And here we have the to the manor born. So while Claude is doing that, I'm going to hop over and let's take a look at step 5. Now, step 5 says that we do have a character list, which you just saw, and it gives me all the information about my characters, their features. Now, Our story is a 30-chapter young adult story, and it states that right here. Now, I'm giving very specific instructions to create a chapter-by-chapter outline that follows the Blake Snyder beat sheet. I want the AI to identify the catalyst, the debate, and the save the cat moment. Each chapter should be from the protagonist's POV, who is Amelia. So the story will be written in first person POV, present tense. So all summaries must be from her POV. Each section must contain 6 beats in number form. Every summary should begin with a hook and end with a cliffhanger. A lot of this probably looks familiar to you because I have used this in other projects. I just kind of tweak it a little bit here and there as needed, depending on the project that I'm working on. Now, I did add this little thing. Cece and I were looking at it the other day, and I have asked that we use the format below for like chapter X, beat number X, and day and time XXX, characters that are involved, the setting. And I'm asking for only characters that are listed within my character list to be used, not any others. Now, keep in mind, I killed my original first 1 step. I'm only on step 5. I am going to go ahead and update this. And let's go ahead and copy all of this. And let's go back to Claude. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. So we have Catherine, we have Taylor, we have, okay, so he records out of admiration. We have Walter. Okay, so there you go. We have a lot of information here. I'm good with where we're at right now. Let's go ahead and put this in here and let's ask Claude. So please proceed to step 5 and let's see if Claude actually pays attention. Now, I have actually uploaded this. If you look at the middle grade project that I did or lesson, I actually went ahead and grabbed all of my prompts and put them in a Word document and uploaded just the Word document. And then I was prompting Claude to basically give me step 1, do step 2, do step 3. And I was prompting it that way. And it did well. So I didn't have an issue with the way that it was working. But I did notice that a lot of people were asking me, well, what were the prompts that you listed the same as the prompts in your Word document? They were the same exact prompts. And I do tend to recycle a lot of mine. Chapter 1, the inciting incident. It gives me the day and time, Monday, 7:30 a.m., a school morning. It's Amelia, Anna, and a deer. The location is a winding country road by lush forest. It's telling us what the actual mood is. It says melancholy and somber, but I kind of feel like maybe there's some frustration in there. Amelia and her mother, Anna, argue heatedly in the car about Amelia going on an unsupervised spring break trip. All of that information, I would want to make sure that I have stuff in my brain dump. If I'm going to use Sudowrite story engine, I would make sure that I had stuff in my brain dump, that I had stuff inside of my synopsis and in other areas that could be helpful for me as a quick reference. But when it came time to actually writing the prose, I'd want to make sure some of those really important details were inside of my story, like the deer darts into the road and Anna swerves, losing control, crashing into a tree, and dies on impact. Well, I need all of that to be in there. Otherwise, if it's just the deer darts into the road and Anna swerves and hits a tree, then the AI could interpret that completely different. So you need to be really specific. Here, it talks about how the first responders cut her out. Make sure that your information is really, really solid. Now you have Claire and Tyler trying to console her. These are people, friends. You get to see some of her life the way that it is before she gets kind of catapulted into her new world. So now we have 3. We have her at the end of 2. She is being escorted to the airport by CPS, and she's leaving everything and everyone she knows behind. Now, I probably add in there on number 6 that the that her bodyguards, her newly assigned bodyguards are there. And I would probably, if that is not done in the next step, then I would have to add that manually. So let's see, chapter 3, we have Lord Edward, we have her meeting him, and she's just overwhelmed and awestruck. So definitely, I'm okay with that. New faces. This is the academy that she is attending, her new school, her first day there. You know, she tries to hide her scars and stitches from the other students' stares. So definitely, it's painting a really good picture here. Number 3, right here, it talks about how she's being mocked in a cruel manner by Lucy. All of this is really important for me to be able to flesh out my story concept later. So it talks about her wounds, and her wounds are not just superficial. You know, she has some deep-seated wounds too that she's going to have to work through. As you can see, I've got chapter 7. It gave me 8. It's following the same general process. I have my characters who are in each chapter that are important to the chapter, and I really like that. That is one thing that I really like having when I am generating, because at a quick glance, I'm able to say, okay, who's in this chapter? What's happening here? It gives me a quick reference and that's one of the reasons why I do this chapter outline first before I flesh out the full beats. Now, if you want to bypass this part, by all means, you can ask for 10 beats, 14 beats, 24 beats for each chapter. That is entirely up to you. I kind of like going through this process because it allows me to look at items. And I find that the AI tends to do better whenever I ask it to give me 6 or 5 beats first, and then I can break those main beats up or primary beats up into like 12 beats or 14. See how many it gave me straight up all the way down. So it gave me up to 16. I want it to continue to give me more chapters, and I'm fixing to ask it or tell Claude that this is supposed to be a 30 chapter book. Why did it stop at 16? So what I'm telling Claude to do, I said, this should be a 30 chapter book. Why did you stop at 16? Please continue and revise any prior chapter if needed to make this 30 chapters. So let's see what Claude tells us. Now, I find that I have to prompt Claude a lot more when I'm trying to get it to write me chapters. ChatGPT-4 is actually better at this than what Claude is. Now, if you notice, it has started right here, but it only gave me 3 for chapter 16. So in a little bit, I'm going to have to ask it to write more, or when I flesh it out to, like, say 12 beats, I'll have to remind it that it only had 3 and it actually has to give me more now. So let's see. We are doing chapter 19. And let's see, Monday, there is a truce. She's suggesting to Lucy that they put aside their differences. Lucy rebuffs her. Okay, so that's okay. Let's see, there is a peace offering. They're studying the library. Amelia doesn't notice Lucy approach until she speaks, startling her. Lucy actually apologizes. Ooh, that's interesting. Makes you wonder, is there a reason for it, or is it a real apology or something else? Oh, so Walter in this chapter is coughing real bad and kind of makes her worry about his medical issues. I like that. So that gives another layer. Let's see, number 23. Edward confronts Walter, I guess, about his health, and he goes under some tests. Because after all, think about it, Walter is more like a mentor to Edward also. He's like that father figure to Edward. So there's an unexpected friend. Chapter 25 has Amelia and Lucy actually kind of coming to terms with each other. And hopefully that is a true friendship rather than the false friendship before the real friendships. I'll have to read this further. Let's see, there's performance anxiety on chapter 27. Okay, so that's okay. Amelia takes a deep breath, walks on stage. Okay, that's nice. She sings. See the family music room. Oh, Edward watches her play. So they're having some family time. I like that. Amends. Lucy approaches Amelia, actually apologizes for mocking her scars. Sounds like both of the girls are coming to terms with how they feel. That's good. And then chapter 30, she is actually working on a new composition. I like that. Her father is being supportive, ends on a happy note. The bully who has tormented her becomes her friend, and it kind of brings things full circle and it shows how much she has grown. Let's go over and pull step 6 just so that you can see what that might look like. So let me go ahead and make a change here. 3, 4, 5. We're going to put a 2 right here. Let's go ahead and grab this one. We are going to use prompt number 6 now. Go ahead and tell it to proceed with step 6. I know that we had that one chapter where we had only 3 beats, so we're going to have to pay attention to what it does here to make sure that it gives us all 14 beats for that one. Now, Cece likes to go back and forth here with her beats, and she'll spend a lot of time right here. I will do that sometimes, but I tend to like to pull everything off, and I like to work in silence on my beats one at a time in a Word document. I will do that, and I will go over and over my beats. I will have 2 Word documents open. I will have all of my beats in one, and then I'll have all of my backstory information in my characters in another so that I can compare. Because if there's anything that is making me question what is going on, or if there's anything too vague, I will go in and I will actually wrap additional information into that beat to make sure that it is very precise. I don't have time to do that on this video, but I will definitely be doing that before I take this and go to generate the prose. What I will do is go in and talk a little bit about it in my next video to explain some of the changes that I will make between now and the time that I bring this forward to show you when I generate the prose. Let's see how much further this is going to go. One of the things that I like about Claude is that it will give you a lot more in one run than GPT, but it doesn't always stay on track. So that's one of the reasons why you really, really have to pay attention. Now we're already all the way up to chapter 5 and it is still generating. That is huge because if I were doing this in Chat GPT, I might only get one chapter at a time from Chat. And keep in mind that Chat GPT 4, that's the one that I generally like to use. It's been running a little wacky the past 3 days, which is why I'm using Claude. But one of the things that I do find with Chat GPT 4 is that even with the 50 questions that I have with the paid service, I don't always finish my prompting in the 50 questions because I keep going back and forth. And if my generation will only give me one chapter of the 14 beats like this, then that means that right off the bat, if I have 30 chapters, I'm going to eat up 30 of my 50 questions, which means that everything else that I did prior and going back and forth means that I may have to use ChatGPT more than once to finish a whole outline or all the beats. In Claude, I tend to be able to get it to spit out everything, and I'm able to then move forward and slowly go over each one of my chapters. And again, I will go over each one of these chapters. I will look at every single beat. And that's what? 14 times 30. So, I'm looking at a lot of beats that I'm going through. It's not unusual for me to go and have to edit anywhere, I would say, from, say, 400 to maybe 800 beats for a story, depending on how many chapters and how many beats I have within each one of my chapters. So it's not uncommon for me to end up doing that. Here it stopped on chapter 10, but it did not finish number 14. If I don't want to run into the same issue that I had earlier, I'm going to tell Claude to please continue where you left off on chapter 10, beat 14, then move on to the other chapters. So let me put that in there. Now, why do I do that? Because earlier I did not do that, and not always, but sometimes Claude will start on the next chapter and not finish the one that it failed to finish. I find the same thing with ChatGPT 4 and 3.5, that if you don't prompt and tell it exactly where it needs to finish, that it may not finish. Now, sometimes it will, sometimes it doesn't, but you're going to have to keep prompting. Otherwise, you have to write that beat yourself. Now, one of the things that I'm finding here is that it's not giving me all of my guardrails, so I'm probably going to add some guardrails in there myself. And I do that quite frequently. Now, if you look at it, you will find that there are things inside of my beats. My beats are pretty lean, and I'm okay with that. You'll hear that a lot of people will say, oh, your beats need to be really, really long with lots of detail. Be careful with that, because more words doesn't necessarily equate to better information for the AI. Having lean, concise, to the point beats that are active, that's what you want. You don't want any of that, any of those vague beats where somebody is thinking about what's going to happen next, because, well, that doesn't tell the AI anything, and it is not an action. You need to have active beats. You don't want to have beats where your characters are ruminating, or beats where a mystery note shows up and it propels them to move on to their next plan. Well, what's the plan? So again, any of your beats that are not specific, you want to rewrite them. And that's another reason why I will ask the AI to make sure that all of them are very detailed. Okay, so I think Claude just has this thing about cancer, because Taylor opens up about his grandfather's terminal cancer diagnosis. Okay, I'm going to leave it in there, but it seems like every story that I have generated through Claude within the past 2 weeks, at least I would say 50 to 75% of them, probably closer to 75%, have all had something to do with a cancer diagnosis that was not part of my original plan. And, that can be okay in some stories, but certain genres that may not work for. But I want you to pay attention, because you might start to see things like this where you begin to notice that the AI is tossing in very similar things. And maybe I don't want Taylor to open up about his grandfather's terminal cancer. Maybe I want Taylor's grandfather to have, dementia. If that's the case, I'll go in there and make those changes. But again, pay attention to what the AI is giving you. So right here, inspired, Walter asks to watch one of the practice sessions. That's not overly specific, but it's specific enough that it gives the AI something to follow. It's not Walter's thinking of asking, it's he asks. So let's see, we got to 17, 18. Okay. Catherine takes Amelia's hand, sharing cherished memories of young Walter's antics. Well, you know what? That's too vague. So whenever I go in to make changes, I will actually come up with a story that Catherine tells Amelia, because I need to know what that is. So again, don't leave anything to chance. We need to make sure that we're guiding the AI enough. This one's okay. She can second guess, her musical piece. It's okay for her to do that. That is enough information for the AI. Struggling with writer's block, frustrated, she vents to Edward about feeling spent. Okay, I like that. It's okay too. Let's see, chapter 21. We go into 22, and it stopped at 22. So again, we're going to ask it to proceed or to finish. Now, why do I ask it to follow the same format? I do that because I notice that sometimes if I don't tell an AI to follow the same format, I don't know, it somehow loses that thread and takes liberties and gives me something completely off the wall. Now, somewhere along the line, did you notice that it stopped giving me my character list? I could ask for it to rewrite all of them and give me the character list on each one of them. Or at the very end, I can ask Claude to give me just a chapter list, just the characters who are present. I can also ask for a list of all of the settings that are used, and I can also list the timeline by chapter so that I know how many days have passed. Now, why would I want those reports? Because it'd be a quick reference for me to say, okay, chapter one, it's a quick look at how many days has passed. Is it daytime, nighttime? Then I can go in and look at my list of characters. How many characters are in chapter one? How many are in chapter two? I could also ask it to give me a breakdown by character of how many times they come onto a scene within a specific chapter. And it would list Amelia, and then it would list all the chapters that she's in, which should be all of them. I could list Lucy's name and it would give me all the chapters that Lucy is in. So there are multiple ways that you can ask it to give you different breakdown of information. Now, here I asked it to continue with chapter 22, beat 5, then continue to the rest of the beats following the same format. Well, that wasn't exactly what I meant, but because I wrote beats instead of the rest of the chapters, Claude took it as he was just stopping right there. Well, I wasn't clear in my description, so I should have had chapter here. So that's another one of the things that you have to watch, because the way that you communicate with the AI can actually hinder the direction that you're moving. Now, Claude can either go back to chapter 22 and rewrite 22, or Claude might be intuitive and start on chapter 23. Let's see what Claude does. Okay, so it went ahead and continued the format and it started with 23. So sometimes the AI can be intuitive that way and realize, oh, wait, you really don't mean for me to go back and write 22, you mean 23. Okay, so right here on this one, whoops, can't highlight it while it's moving. Strolling through the garden, introspective, Amelia thinks about how much has changed. That right there will cause looping. That is one of the areas when I am going back through every single one of these beats that would stop me. And if she's going to have some inner thought about something and she's thinking about everything that has happened or changed, I need to tell the AI what exactly it is that she's thinking. Because if I don't do that, or if I don't give what those thoughts are, the AI is not going to know what direction to take. And it could cause some looping. And then, especially going into beat 2, smiling, she remembers arriving lost and broken, now feeling whole and fulfilled. Okay, that right there can also cause looping. So beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, all 3 of those could cause some looping. I need to be very specific in those specific beats. Otherwise, I'm going to confuse the AI. I need action in there. If I'm going to have her ruminating, I need to tell the AI exactly what she's thinking and how she's ruminating. Now, number 4 goes into some action. That is something that the AI will actually be able to pick up on and write. Her fingering and touching the rose quartz necklace. She can sense that Abigail's presence is right there. So she definitely, I don't know who Abigail is at this point, so I'm going to have to figure that out. But those are all things that I'm going to have to look at before I generate. Because if I generate right now, I'm going to have a story that is so messed up that I'm not going to know what direction I'm going. So I need to make sure that all of my beats are in line, that my beats are flowing into each other, that my chapters make sense from, one chapter to the next. So there's a graduating ceremony. Now, because she's graduating, She's graduating at 17. So I have to look at that. If I want to have her graduating, I have to consider what that would look like because she's in the UK. And I know that the UK goes 1 year more than what US schools do. So that is something that I would have to look at. Let's see, is she really graduating from the academy or from a music program? So let's see, we have 25, 27, 28, 29, and 30. So let's find out what it will have to rewrite. Now, again, if I was not filming, then I would probably go through these a lot slower. You saw where I've just kind of skimmed over and picked things out. You want to make sure, again, that you are looking at every single beat and you're asking yourself, is it clear? Will it confuse the AI? What of these two things is it doing? Is that beat developing a character or is it moving the plot forward? If it's not doing one of those two things, then you need to kill it or you need to change it because then it's not helping your story. Okay, so it's telling me right here that it's going to tweak chapter 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Let's see what it's tweaking. Celebrate her music program graduation rather than from high school. Good. I will remove this chapter entirely as it does not fit the timeline for a 16-year-old. University break. I'll adjust this to reference to university and make it a trip to celebrate the end of the music program instead. Okay, I like that. I'll remove the chapter completely as she could not be having a senior recital. That's true. Let's see, that will be rewrite chapters 25 through 30 with the new content. So let's see what he does now. And guys, I don't know why I am calling Claude a he. Just for whatever reason, I just feel that Claude is a guy, and ChatGPT, you'll hear me use male pronouns for chat also, who Cece and I affectionately call Chadwick. But again, I don't know why, it just naturally happens. Did it give me number 25? It did not give me number 25. So what happened to 25, Mr. Claude? Okay, so it gave me 26, 27, and this is the music room, a Saturday afternoon. Woohoo! They're celebrating at the park. We have a Monday evening at the music room at the estate, and then we should have 30. She's going to her specialized arts boarding school in London. Oh, okay. Do we want her to go to a boarding school? Maybe, I don't know. I'll have to think about that because I can't see the father wanting to send her off. Maybe to a summer event. What happened to chapter 25, Claude? And don't send her off to boarding school. Let's have her go to a music camp. I think that's much better. There you go. Let's see what he does. Because, I mean, the father just found out that he has a daughter, so I don't think he's going to send her to boarding school. And plus, I don't think grandma would allow that. Oh, my apologies. I mistakenly skipped over chapter 25. Now, I do want to ask if there are other chapters between 25 and 30 that talk about her going to boarding school, because if they do, then he will have to change those as well. Let's see what he says. The other thing that you can do is ask Claude to review all of the chapters with the 14 beats and see if they are all flowing well together. So that means that I need 27 and 28. I need him to redo 27 and 28 because I was pretty sure that there was going to be some issues there. So let's see what he does now. I'm happy to make other revisions as needed. That's really nice of you, Claude. But if you paid attention, you wouldn't be making them now. But I guess I can't really complain because, Claude makes it so much easier as a resource because I can look at my chapters and tell him, yeah, no, I don't like that. Redo them all. If I were redoing all of these, then it would really, really lengthen my time. I don't mind going back and forth with Claude in this way. And I can tell you right now, Cece and I go back and forth with the AI so much. And this is why it can take us hours to get through some of our content. Here, I just went through this actually really fast. I didn't get to look at every single beat. And again, I would not generate this right now because I'd really have to look at it. Now I'm going to ask him, please review all the current chapters, evaluate them, and advise, if I can spell, if any need to change or if they. So I'm asking Claude to please review the current chapters, evaluate them, and advise if any need to change or if they break the flow of the story. Now, as you can see, I have 5 messages remaining until 1 in the morning. Yeah, I'm not going to have enough time to get him to rewrite every single one of my chapters. So what I will do is ask a few probing questions like this, and then at 1 o'clock, because I am pretty sure I'll still be awake, I will then ask Claude to go ahead and redo all of my chapters again. But between now and 1 o'clock, it is 10:30 here right now, Central Standard Time. So between 10 and 1 o'clock, I will be reading all of my chapters, and then I will make changes where I need to make them. In early chapters, her selective mutism after the accident is emphasized. Later on, she speaks more fluid. I suggest keeping the mutism as a consistent obstacle for the first half of the story to maintain, that continuity. I'm going to ask, are there chapters prior to the midpoint that will come into play? I'm going to grab this because I want to ask this question because this is pretty important. And let's see, I'm in play and need changing to tighten the manuscript. And here's the question, or I am asking about. So let's see what it says. Now let's take a look at the timeline of certain relationships could be tweaked for logical flow. She opens up to Edward quite quickly after arriving. So we could do that. I can do that myself. Right, 30 chapters. There are opportunities to go deeper on certain storylines, wrapping them up quickly. Lucy's bullying, the redemption can be expanded. So when I ask to have all 30 of these rewritten, these items right here are things that I'm going to ask for. Now I'm going to ask for the end on some of those to have true cliffhangers, because I notice that Claude doesn't always give me true cliffhangers. And cliffhangers, I really like those inside of my stories. And if the prose does not generate those, then I write those in myself. And when I do rewrite or go in and take the prose that's been generated, I do a lot of rewriting. That concludes what I am going to work on this segment, but stay tuned because I will go ahead and generate all 30 of these again in the next segment, and then I will take those straight into Sudowrite story engine and start doing the generation of the prose. And I'll actually show you that process whenever I kind of flesh out all of my beats outside of Sudowrite story engine and I bring them in. I'll show you exactly how I do that. And the other thing that I'll show you is I'll do a separate little video to show you how I get my character's voice, because I actually use some prompts, and I'll probably do that separate because that's something that other viewers might enjoy looking at on how to find an author voice. It's something that if you have written something yourself, you can actually use that to get your tone, or you can actually grab the outline that you have written and you can get a tone or feel from that and have it generate something that you can actually use in the style and genre boxes within Sudowrite story engine. So thanks and stay tuned. Wow, we've come a long way, haven't we, writers? I hope you've enjoyed our journey thus far, from taking things from early concept development to fleshing out some of the chapters, all with the power of AI at our fingertips. If you've created something amazing with Claude 2 or Sudowrite Story Engine, I would really love to hear about it. Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't hesitate to ask any questions or request more tips. And hey, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you're always in the loop for more classes like this one. Learning doesn't stop here. Join our AI Writers Connection Discord group where fellow writers like you share inspiration, resources, and good old-fashioned encouragement. Keep in mind, this is video 1 of 2, so the next video will be released probably in a day or two, but it will show you the creation of the 30 chapters being revised, as well as the generation of the prose inside a story engine. So stay tuned and be on the lookout for that video to come out next. This is Mira Gold signing off from AI Writers Connection. Keep writing, keep dreaming, happy writing, and I'll see you in the next video.